Imagine having the power to know when you're going to die. Well, it's said that some celebrities have sensed and predicted when their death was near.
From Bob Marley predicting what age he would die at, to Abraham Lincoln having a dream about his death 3 days before it happened. We'll be discussing these and more only on today's Top 10 list.
Coming in number 10, we have Mark Twain. Mark Twain is one of the best novelists to ever come out of America. He has stories that have shaped literature to this day, and on top of that, he's one of the best Colonel Sanders impersonators I've ever seen in my life. The dude basically wrote the book on wearing a southern white suit and having a mustache so thick you could comb it with a horse brush. But something very interesting about Mark Twain is that he was born when the Halley's Comet was passing by the Earth. Now, this is something that happens like clockwork every 76 to 75 years. Now, when the comet was set to pass by the Earth again, Mark said, "I came with the comet and I'll leave with the comet." And sure enough, when the comet passed, he died. Some people think this could mean that he was some sort of alien visitor that came to Earth just to hang out and then took off with the comet when his time on Earth was done. That seems like a pretty good setup to me.
Moving on to number 9, we have Nostradamus. Back in the day, Nostradamus was a very famous man. It's because he was said to have the ability to predict the future. And honestly, a lot of his predictions have come true, so people worshipped him and turned to him for insight about the future. Now, Nostradamus actually predicted the exact date of his death. On July 1st, 1566, Nostradamus made sure to tell his priest all of his last predictions because he knew that the next day he was going to pass. The priest ended the conversation with, "Until tomorrow," and Nostradamus replied with, "You will not find me alive at sunrise." He died that night, making his prediction come true.
Coming in at number 8, Bob Marley. There are pieces of Bob Marley that we all know. We all know that he is one of the best musicians that has ever graced the earth. We know that he stood for one love and wanted to stand up against evil establishments. We know that he fought for the right to use cannabis freely, and he put Jamaica on the map and shared a lot of their culture with the world. But here's something I didn't know. He was also a prophet. The man was actually very good at palm reading and predicting the future, and he eventually took this knack at calling out the future and turned it on himself. Bob Marley predicted his own death, saying he would die at 36. When asked why he called out this age, he said that was when Jesus died. People probably thought he was bluffing until he passed away at the age of 36 when he lost his battle with cancer.
Coming in at number 7, we have John Lennon. Singer-songwriter, founder, and co-lead vocalist of the Beatles passed away on December 8th, 1980. He passed after a crazed fan hunted him down and shot him. After this happened, a lot of fans went back to analyze Lennon's songs and interviews. That's when they discovered that Lennon might have predicted his death. First, let's look at the song Borrowed Time. In the song, he makes reference to the fact that he never thought that he would live very long. For example, in the song, the lyrics go, "Living on borrowed time without a thought for tomorrow," which they interpreted as he doesn't know if he will get a tomorrow. Another lyric says, "Now I am older, the more that I see, the less that I know for sure," as in he doesn't know what the future holds for him. Then Frida Kelly, the Beatles' secretary, came forward and said that John would often say he would die young. He would say things like, "I won't be here when I'm 40, I won't make it to 40. What's even freakier is that after the Beatles manager was shot, John said, "I'm next, I know it." It doesn't stop there. In an interview, when someone asked him how he thought he would die, Lennon said, "I'll probably be popped off by some loony." And that's literally what happened to him.
Next on the list, we have XXXTENTACION. This rapper blew up and went from just being released from prison to one of the biggest up-and-coming rappers in the world. He was performing in front of thousands of people and was even having beef battles with massive celebrities like Drake. When the rapper was only 20 years old, he was shot and killed in his car. After this happened, his fans went digging through some of his previous social media content, and they found a video of him talking about how he figured he would die soon. In the video, he says, "If worst things comes to worst and I die a tragic death, I at least want to know that the kids perceived my message." XXXTENTACION is still relevant today in pop culture, with his music still receiving millions of listens. I think if his goal was to get his message out to his fans, he was successful in that. And since he died at such a young age, I think that many people wonder what would have happened to the rapper if he was still around. Some of the rappers that were blowing up around the time that he was breaking through have faded away, while others have risen to the top. Of course, it's impossible to know, but it's still something very interesting to think about.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Martin Luther King Jr. On April 3rd, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his last speech, "I've been to the mountaintop." This speech was all about social justice and equal rights. But people thought that the last couple of lines he spoke were foreshadowing his fate. For the next day, he was assassinated. In the speech he said, and I quote, "Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you." And he was right about that. The next day he was killed. So in a way, people interpreted this as Martin Luther King Jr. predicting his own death.
Next on the list we have Princess Diana. When Princess Diana died, it shocked the world. She was one of the most kind souls to ever come out of the royal family, and she will be remembered for how she tirelessly worked to help impoverished people. She would die in a car crash in 1997 that took her life, along with her boyfriend and soon-to-be husband, Dodi Faye, and her driver. In a letter that was written 10 months before the princess died, she said the royal family is trying to kill her, and she specifically talked about them tampering with her brakes. There has been a lot of conspiracies surrounding her death. Some people say that the royal family wanted her dead because she was going to marry Dodi Faye and convert to Islam. Other people said she might have known about Prince Andrew and his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. There's a lot of people who didn't want the secrets of the family spilling out, and Princess Diana seemed that she was someone who wanted to do what was right no matter what the cost, and that might have costed her her life.
In our third spot, we have James Brown. James Brown was a well-known singer, songwriter, musician, and dancer. Leading up to his passing, he was sick for a number of months. On Christmas in 2006, James reached out to his friend and manager, Charles Bobbitt, and said, "I'm going away tonight." And he was right. A couple of hours later, he passed away from congestive heart failure. His friend later told CNN that he didn't believe what Brown was saying until he actually passed away. I mean, it's pretty freaky, so it's believed that James Brown predicted his death. Also, those were the last words he ever said.
Next on the list we have Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix will be remembered as one of the greatest guitarists of all time. His music changed a generation of people, but we all know he died well before he should have. Jimi Hendrix was only 27 years old when he passed away. It was in the year 1970 when Jimi Hendrix would finally push his drug use too far. He was mixing alcohol with several other types of narcotics, and on this day he wanted to mix them with sleeping pills. He took way too many and this caused him to pass out and vomit, but he was too drugged to wake up from his drunken state, and he ended up asphyxiating and dying. Not the most glamorous way to die, but it's kind of fitting for a rock god. Well, exactly 5 years before Jimi Hendrix died, he wrote the lyrics to the song "Many Things He Would Try and Soon He Would Die." Maybe he saw a glimpse of his own death and was writing this song, or maybe it was just a coincidence. But no matter what happened, it's very eerie to think that his own lyrics would link up with his death so perfectly.
And in our number one spot, we have Abraham Lincoln.
Believe it or not, but Honest Abe had a premonition of his own death 3 days before he actually died.
This was according to Lincoln's friend and bodyguard, who later wrote a biography about Abe's life in his honor.
Included in his biography was Abe's scary premonition.
So 3 days before his death, Lincoln had a dream where he felt deathly still, and all he could hear were the sounds of people weeping.
When he wandered downstairs in his dream, he came across a corpse surrounded by soldiers and a ton of visitors.
He then asked the guards who was dead, and he said, "The president, he was killed by an assassin."
3 days later, Abraham Lincoln was killed by John Wilkes Booth.
Literally, Abe saw the way he was going to die and when in his dreams. That is so freaky.
Alright guys, that has been our list. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I've been your host, Jade Arena.
I've been your other host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see you. I feel it.
You want to start or you want me to start?
Oh, sorry. You can start.
Okay. Life.
I like how you spelled it.
Yeah, what, Colonel? Yeah. Canola. I think I tried to type it and then it auto-corrected and I was like, I know what it is. I was like, I got this one. I'll figure it out on the back end. I just said that same thing twice. So maybe editors cut out the second time I said it. It's like space.
Space.
Just in general, it's like the concept of space. That sounds terrible. Unfortunate groups. Unfortunate souls. Yeah. Poor unfortunate souls.
Believe it or not, but honestly.